So in the last lecture, we have learned how to create circular double linked list, and we have seen how it works in practice. So in this video, we are going to see how insertion of a node works in a circular double linked list. Here again, we have three cases for insertion of a new node to a circular double linked list. So we can insert a new node at the beginning of the list, we can insert a new node at a specified location in the list, and finally we can insert a node at the end of circular double linked list. Firstly, we will look at insertion of a new node at the beginning of circular double linked list. It's basically similar to the double linked list, but here we perform some extra steps. Let's say we want to insert a node at the beginning of circular double linked list over here. So the first thing that we are going to do is to create a blank node, and the physical location of this node in the memory is 444. Then we need to assign a value to it. Let's say we assign the value of 6 to it. To insert this node before node 1 over here, we need to update the next reference of this node to the physical location of node 1 here. We know that the physical location of node 1 over here is 001. So if we update new node's next reference to 001, it will create a link between new node and node 1 over here. So the next step is we need to update the previous reference of this node over here. We know that in circular double linked list, the previous reference of first node points to the last node. So in our case, the last node's physical location is 333. So if we update previous reference of new node to 333, it will create a link between new node and last node over here. So we know that in case of circular double linked list, last node has to point to first node also. So in this case, first node will be the new node over here. So this new node's location should be updated the next reference of last node. So if we update next reference of last node to the 444, it will create a link between node 4 over here and new node over here. And by doing so, the link between node 4 and node 1 will be deleted. Then the next step is we need to change node 1's previous location, which points to node 4, to point new node over here, because here we need to create reverse link. So if we update node 1's previous location to 444, it will create a reverse link between node 1 and new node over here. So by doing so, a link from node 1 to node 4 gets deleted. And finally, as a last step, we need to update head reference to point to new node, because in this case new node becomes first node, so head reference has to point to first node. So if we update head reference to 444, it will create a link between head and new node over here, and a link between head and node 1 over here gets deleted. So by completing these steps, we have successfully inserted a new node at the beginning of circular double linked list. So let's recap quickly what we have done here to make things clear for you guys. So firstly, we created a node over here and assigned a value to it. Then we have updated the next reference of this node to the physical location of node 1 over here. Then we have updated the previous reference of this node to the location of last node to create a link between this node and the last node. Then the last node has to point to this node, so we have updated next reference of last node to the physical location of new node over here, and with this we created a link between last node and new node. Then we need to create a reverse link between node 1 and new node over here, so we have updated previous reference of node 1 to the physical location of new node over here. Then finally, we have updated head value to point to this node over here. So we have updated physical location of this new node over here, which is 444, to the head value. And with this, a link between head and new node is created. Now let's continue to the second case, in which we are inserting a node at a specified location in circular double linked list. Let's say we want to insert a node between node 2 and node 3. So once again, we will create a blank node, and then we will assign a value to it. So in our case, the value of this new node over here is 20. And the physical location of this node is 555. So the next thing is we need to update previous and next reference of this node to point to the node 2 and to point to node 3. So how do we know the location of node 2 over here? So to find the location of node 2 over here, we need to loop through the circular double linked list. So we start to loop from the node 1, and when we reach node 2, we stop over here. And then we need to update next and previous reference of new node over here. So we know that next reference of node 2 over here points to node 3, which means that next reference of node 2 is physical location of node 3. So by taking this value and updating the next reference of new node over here, we will create a link between new node and node 3. So the physical location of node 3 is 222. So we put in the next reference of new node the 222, and it creates a link between new node and node 3 over here. Now the next step is we need to update previous reference of new node over here. So the previous reference of new node has to point to physical location of node 2. So we know that node 2's physical location is 111, So by updating the previous reference of new node to 111, we create a reverse link between new node and node 2 over here. Then the next case is we need to create a link between node 2 and new node. So we know that new node's physical location is 555. So by updating 555 to the node 2's next reference, we create a link between them. And by creating a link between node 2 and new node, the link between node 2 and node 3 gets deleted. Then we need to create a reverse link between node 3 to new node. So by updating node 3's previous reference to 555, we create a reverse link between node 3 and new node. And by doing so, a reverse link between node 3 and node 1 gets deleted. So with this, we have successfully inserted a node between node 2 and node 3. And this is the same as that we did in double linked list. So let's continue to the next case in which we want to insert a node at the end of circular double linked list. So here again, firstly we create a blank node and assign a value to it. Let's say we create a node with the value of 20 and the physical location of this node over here is 444. So we know that the last node of circular double linked list must point to the first node of the list. So as we want to insert at the end of this circular double linked list, so the next reference of new node has to point to first node. So the first step here is we will update the next reference of this node to point to the first node. So we know that the first node's physical location is 001. So by updating the next reference to 001, we are creating a link between new node and node 1 over here. Then the next thing is we need to create a reverse link between new node and node 4 here. So we know that the node 4's physical location is 333. So if we update previous reference of new node to 333, it will create a reverse link between new node and node 4 over here. Then the next thing is we need to create a link from node 4 to new node over here. So if we update the next reference of node 4 to the physical location of new node, which is 444, we will create a link between them. So by updating this one, we create a link between them. So when we update the next reference to 444, so the link from node 4 to node 1 gets deleted because we have updated the next reference from 001 to 444. Then the next step is we need to update tail reference to point to this new node over here. So if we update tail reference to 444, it will create a link between tail and new node over here. And a link from tail to the node 4 gets deleted. And finally, we need to create a reverse link from node 1 to new node over here. Because now new node is the last node in our circular double linked list, and we know that first node has to point to last node. So by updating first node's previous reference to 444, which is physical location of new node, we create a link between them. And by creating this link, a link from node 1 to node 4 gets deleted. And with this, we have successfully inserted a new node at the end of circular double linked list. Once again, let's quickly recap what we have done here. We have created a blank node and inserted a value to it. Then we update the next reference of this node to point to the first node. Then we update the previous reference of this newly created node to point to node 4, which is 333 in our case. Similarly, node 4 has to point to new node, so we have updated the next reference of node 4 to 444, which is physical location of new node. Then we update the tail reference to point to this node, and then we have updated node 1's previous reference to point to this node over here. And with this, we have completed an insertion of a node at the end of circular double linked list. And hopefully you have understood the logic of inserting a new node in circular double linked list. Now in the next video, let's combine all these three cases together and create an algorithm of insertion of a new node in circular double linked list.